I tried telling him after a while that I was bisexual, and he was so angry. So I just shut that part of myself down. I suppressed my sexuality for years, and I just threw myself into recovery and religion and tried to be this perfect little sober church girl, and it lasted for about 7 years. And then the old self started slowly waking back up, But the funny thing is too, like, I thought that it was the booze and the partying that made me not monogamous, that made me a cheater, until I was sober 7 years and I started feeling those feelings again. And I thought, oh my God, what is wrong? It's not that. This is who I really am.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from all over the world to hear their personal journeys of self-discovery through the lenses of love, sex, and relationships.
Our mission is to show people that they're not alone and to inspire them to embrace their true selves so that together we can open minds and live authentically without shame.
We believe everyone's story is powerful and beautiful, yet it's important to remember that everyone does life a little bit differently and that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we aren't doctors. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Well, welcome to episode 384. We're Finn and Emma, and today
we're a sick Finn and a healthy Emma.
So far.
So far, we're going to try to keep it that way. Our goal for episode 385 is not to be a sick Emma and a healthy Finn.
It's 384.
I know. Our goal for 385
for next week.
Stay tuned, everybody.
For both of us to be healthy. Anyway, welcome to the podcast. Today we have a beautiful conversation with Steve and Cathy. They've been together about 6 years, have been open from the beginning, and really just figuring it out as they go.
Yeah, this is a lovely conversation, and also a lovely conversation with community members.
Yes, they're community members too.
And I had the opportunity to meet them last fall. No offense, Emma.
You did.
They're lovely people, and we're super excited about this conversation. As Emma said, they've been exploring non-monogamy since the beginning of their relationship, and that has looked a lot of different ways. It started with swinging, some hotwifing, some cuckolding. It's also got some elements of polyamory, and really, it's just these two having conversations and communication about what they both want, how to support each other, and how to build an amazing relationship together.
And having fun, too.
And having a bit of fun as they go. So, again, thank you, Steve and Cathy, for coming on, for sharing your beautiful story, and for all of your vulnerability in this really, really amazing conversation.
For anyone who's a premium subscriber, we're going to jump right into the interview with Steve and Cathy now. And for anyone else, we're going to go through a couple of announcements.
We're gonna make them exciting today.
Go for it.
I'm going to use my sick Finn voice.
Well, then go for it.
The first thing is to tell you about the premium subscription. That is a way to skip these announcements up front, so you do not have to hear us talk about our community, our virtual events, yada, yada, yada. But we do put important dates in the outro, so you won't miss anything if you do want to sign up for the premium subscription and join us for all of the yada, yada, yada that I just talked about a second ago. To sign up, you go over to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. You scroll down on the homepage and you'll find links there. I bet you can figure it out. We believe in you. If you can't, send us an email and we'll help you out.
Next up, we have an event tomorrow. That is March 20th, 2025. We have our virtual speed friending event. We would love to have you come join us.
That's the first yada.
Okay. That's a good one.
So virtual speed friending tomorrow. These are an amazing way to meet people from all over the world who are exploring non-monogamy, or maybe not. Maybe they're just open-minded people like you who want to meet amazing people. To sign up, you head over to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. You click on the banner at the top and you'll find all of the information right there. We put you in Zoom breakout rooms with a question to talk about. You talk about that question. We scramble the rooms, put you in a new room, ask you a new question. You do it over and over and over. Yada, yada, yada.
Yada, yada, yada. That's going to be the theme of this intro, isn't it?
I'm gonna try to stop. Sometimes I get hooked.
The virtual speedrunning events are open to anyone. You just must be open-minded and respectful. We'd love for you to come and join us. Again, sign up on our website under the events tab. Next up, we told you at the beginning of this episode that Steve and Cathy are part of our community, and we wanted to share a little bit more about that. We host a virtual community over on a platform called Mighty Networks. It is full of 300 people, over 300 people, just like you, who are curious about relationships and non-monogamy, supporting each other and socializing every single day. We host monthly workshops and monthly community calls, and in-person retreats. We're excited about the next one that's coming up very soon.
Yeah, we've got a in-person retreat coming up on April 25th to the 27th, just outside Atlanta, Georgia. We would absolutely love to have you join us. We've been doing these for a few years now, and this year we've got a handful of workshops and just a whole bunch of incredible activities. It's basically going to be a house party with great food, great people, and you.
And tickets are still available.
Tickets are still available so that you can join us. You can find out more over on the community tab of our website, right where you were going to go sign up for the virtual community.
You can find a beautiful PDF with a bunch of information.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's 13 pages of pure engineering design. So, we're better at the math than the visuals, but we did our best. So anyway, we'd love to have you come join us. We'd love to have you join us in the virtual community as well. Again, you can find out more under the community tab of our website at normalizingnonmonogamy.com.
And last but not least, we wanted to tell you about our favorite way to get tested for STIs. It is stdcheck.com. I used to say that so fast, and now I've slowed down.
Now it's so slow that we have to make a whole episode for it.
Anyway, stdcheck.com is the service that Finn and I use to get tested. It is what we love. It is such a fast and discreet way to get tested for STIs. By using the links on our website under the resources tab, you save $10, making a 10-panel test only $129. And the best part is you get to know your sexual health status.
So you can find all those links, again, under the resources tab of our website or directly in your podcast player show notes below. And one last thing you can do while you're on our website, please send us an email, send us a voicemail. We would love to have you come on the show or to give us any feedback that you have, thoughts, questions. We're here for it. But absolutely would love to have you come on the show. Steve and Cathy are great examples of people who are just out there living life and wanted to come on and share their story. And we would love to have you be just like them.
And with that, let's go and talk with Steve and Cathy. Welcome to the podcast today, Steve and Cathy. We're excited you're here. Thanks for coming on and spending time with us today.
And for being community members.
Yes, that is
indeedy.
well.
Yes, indeedy.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we would love for you to start by introducing yourself at whatever level you feel comfortable.
Okay. I'm Steve. I'm 58 years old, married to Cathy. I am a recovering alcoholic. I'm ethically non-monogamous, biflexible, on the cuckold spectrum. Cathy and I swing together as well.
Awesome.
And I'm Cathy. I'm 54 years old. I'm bisexual. I'm a hot wife. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I'm married to Steve. He's my fourth husband.
She's a collector.
A collector. Yeah.
Collector.
Amazing. Well, I was just so excited to dig into this and grateful that you two reached out today. And so maybe, you two know the best place to start, but maybe take us back to each of you, the beginning. Where did non-monogamy come into each of your lives, or was that something that you found when you came together?
I'm going to let Cathy start with this.
I'll start because I have a longer history. I've been non-monogamous my whole life, but I didn't really know that that's what I was because we grew up in a culture of monogamy. So I've had a primary partner since I'm 14 years old, but I could never be faithful to that partner. So my whole life, I've been married 4 times, and I never was monogamous until I got sober at age 40 years old. Because getting sober, doing the next right thing, cheating was not doing the next right thing.
For sure. Well, and it sounds like the years of being non-monogamous up until that point were not under the ethical non-monogamy umbrella per se.
They weren't at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how about you? Oh, go ahead.
No, go for it. How about you, Steve?
I'm pretty vanilla. My backstory is pretty vanilla. I was married for a number of decades. My daughter calls that a mostly successful marriage that ran its course. It wasn't something that was ever on my radar. Cathy and I met, like we mentioned at the intros, we're both sober for a period of time now, good period of time. And we met at a meeting of the fellowship that we're both members of. And, over a period of time, before we got romantically involved, we knew each other for several years and were friends. And getting to know somebody in that fellowship, you tend to learn people at a little bit of a greater depth, a little greater intimacy than you would if you're at the corner bar. Not to put too fine a point on it. So I learned about Cathy. She learned about me, and over time, we just kind of gradually became closer. We became officers at the same time in our group, so we were talking more on the phone and texting. And I had a job for a period where I did a lot of traveling, which factors into our story in a little bit here. And Cathy was one of my sober network, was one of my sober buddies as I'm traveling around the world. There were people that I'd stay in contact with, and Cathy was one of them.
No, I mean, it makes total sense, right? You're doing something that is incredibly challenging, coming out of being alcoholics and recovering from that. You're leaning on each other. You're knowing each other at depths that, like you said, you're not going to have that at the corner bar typically. And so
Yeah.
seems like almost your whole way of relating at this point in your lives was changing. I mean, Cathy, it sounds like for you, it was, I don't want to cheat on people anymore. Probably didn't ever really want to, I'm guessing, but I'm done with that. You're both coming sort of out of these previous lives and into a new and finding each other at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And that turned out to have a big impact in our relationship and how we relate to each other. We might be getting ahead of the story here a little bit, but that's kind of table stakes for us. Is we going through that process, you kind of have to tear yourself down and learn how to communicate about your true self in ways that are just as uncomfortable as the day is long. And, both of us having gone through that process and understanding it has been, like I said, table stakes is bedrock for our relationship. We're both capable and willing of being, all the way honest and open with each other. We call it going to uncomfortable island. We'll sit on this couch that we're on right now, and we don't have a TV in the house. So we'll sit facing each other, and there's nothing that we can't discuss with each other. And that all did stem from the getting sober process and learning for both of us a different way of communicating that's more vulnerable and orders of magnitude more honest.
Yeah.
So when we need to have an uncomfortable conversation, because in the lifestyle that happens often, one of us will say to the other, "We have to meet on uncomfortable island," and then we know, and it kind of breaks the ice, and because sometimes conversations are hard and scary, so that
Yeah.
loosens
it up for us a little bit.
Yeah, it makes it a little more accessible to both of you in some ways of oh, well, maybe this is uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean there still can't be connection in that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're like a lot of couples. Sometimes the big heavy stuff will come out in a text message or a phone call. That always seems to be easier, not to be staring somebody in the face when you're having the big things.
Yeah.
But that we do that as well. But I think the most of our conversations are face to face, although we've had no shortage that were by texting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say just on our end too, like we can relate to that. There's times where there's something that one or both of us want to talk about, and we sort of we lay the breadcrumbs of, hey, want to meet on uncomfortable island.
Although we haven't used that term, and now I kind of want to. So
right? Here's roughly what I want to talk about, and then you both show up to the couch in that mindset, right? One of you is not showing up like thinking you're gonna, have this cheery, happy-go-lucky time, and the other person's coming with something else, and you surprise each other, right?
Yeah,
not like that happened to us recently.
No.
Whoops.
Yeah. Whoops is right.
But no, the backstory with the uncomfortable island, and this might be dating us. We're a little bit older, I think, than the center of mass of the target range for all this stuff. Is there was a TV show in the 70s called Fantasy Island, and it had this guy Ricardo Montalban, who was the host, Mr. Rourke, and it was always welcome to Fantasy Island. So we kind of morphed it to Uncomfortable Island.
I love it.
That was amazing.
And I really want to dive into like the two of you, but I'm curious a little bit more on individual stories first. And Cathy, on your end, you said you got sober at 40, and that's when things started to shift. What was the process for you in those years of figuring out kind of your relationship and what you wanted in relationship with yourself, with others? Like, I'm just curious because of how you said you'd been with people, like Ben had a primary partner since you were 14, but it wasn't really it wasn't what you wanted, but you didn't know any better, I think, is what happened.
Right. Because society makes us think that monogamy is the only way. I think, that's the
Yeah,
norm anyway. I'm kind of going to go off a little bit, but
please.
yeah, it's part of my backstory. When I was around 19 years old and I was with my first husband, like we were young, we were partiers, but that's when I had my first threesome. And as much as I liked it, it hurt me to a degree, and it made me feel like I wasn't good enough. Like every time he would want to do it and ask to do it again, I was torn because part of me wanted to have fun and do those things because I enjoyed it, but I just never felt good enough and it made me insecure. And I think I carried that on for a long, long time. And even when Steve and I got together, one of the first things I said to him was, "Don't ever ask me to have a threesome." This was before we were in the lifestyle,
I still
But
haven't, not even once.
no, he hasn't. But which he could now. But so back in those days, having all these fun times, it was always me, my husband, another woman. I felt like, well, it's really not fair that, he gets to do this. So that's when I did a lot of unethical things, with other people. And so I'm not proud of that, but it just wasn't healthy. But I didn't have the communication skills. I think that's what I'm getting at. Like we were young and again, that, you know, you're married, it's, you shouldn't be cheating and, fear and immaturity,
Sure.
Mhm.
As far as I could say to him, as much as I could say to him was, you know, I just don't feel good enough, and that's kind of how it went for years, but we still did it for years and years and years, and then finally it was like, well, I'm sick of living like this. So then that relationship ended and I got into another one with a primary partner and it was the same thing over and over again until I was 40. And then I got sober. And like I said, that kind of behavior I knew wasn't good. We have a saying in our program, and it's the woman I was will drink again. So it scared me. I thought I can't go back to acting that way if I want to stay sober.
Hmm.
So I got into another relationship. He was a safe person who didn't
Very vanilla.
drink. I tried telling him after a while that I was bisexual, and he was so angry. So I just shut that part of myself down. I suppressed my sexuality for years, and I just threw myself into recovery and religion and tried to be this perfect little sober church girl, and it lasted for about 7 years. And then the old self started slowly waking back up. But the funny thing is too, like I thought that it was the booze and the partying that made me not monogamous, that made me
Yeah.
a cheater until I was sober 7 years and I started feeling those feelings again.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, what is wrong? It's not that. This is who I really am.
Yeah.
So,
And that was a process. I don't want to speak too much for you, but we do know each other's story really well, and that was a process for Cathy getting her head wrapped around that there is a way to be ethical and non-monogamous. It doesn't have to be, lurking in the shadows and sneaking around. That there is
Yeah.
another way.
Yeah. Well,
And
again,
it,
we're not taught that, right? So like it's no
no,
wonder that it was a process for you to figure that out. Like society doesn't show that to us.
no, that's not shown as being healthy ever.
Right.
That the whole world is heteronormative and mononormative. It just is. So
Yeah.
bucking against that is a challenge in itself. And what for Cathy, it was all the more so. She thought that it was directly related to the abuse of substances.
Yeah.
And when you get on the other side of that hurdle, you see that, okay, life's better without this stuff. And for her, it was like, okay, is this something that's going to pull me back in?
Yeah.
It's the sort of thing that we're, it's pounded into our heads. Like she said, the old person will do the old things, and old behavior is a big driver. What changed with Cathy was when she realized that it wasn't the not monogamous part. It wasn't the wanting to have sex with other people that was the problem. It wasn't her sex drive that was the problem. Her humanity, her connection to humanity, that was the problem. It was the sneaking around.
Yeah.
It was the lying, cheating part that was the issue, not the actual sex part.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious then, Cathy, for you're now you're now on the sober side of this, and you're figuring out that it wasn't the booze that was driving the infidelities and the unethical behavior, but now, and you've been shamed for your whole life for it.
Mhm.
And now you're looking at it going, okay, well, it sounds like you're at this point of, okay, I'm maybe queer, bisexual. I'm trying to figure out my sexuality, my sex drive, but that's never been okay. And I'm
Right.
curious, where did you go at this point? Where you sort of, you're like you said, you're 7 years of the good little sober church girl, but that sounds like it wasn't really the Cathy that you felt inside.
No, it wasn't. I mean, that would lead us into Steve and I's story together.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we started dating, I don't know, 6 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, 6 years ago. As he said earlier, he was traveling all over the world for work. So for the first year that we were together, he was away more than he was home. So it was difficult for me because I was used to always having a primary partner around, and
And a spare person.
and a spare person, right? That's true too, right? So he's off in other parts of the world, and I'm getting lonely, and we were communicating daily, but there was no physical intimacy. And I had a friend at my house, and she was on Tinder, and she's swiping, and this little light bulb went off in my head. Boy, I could go on Tinder, because Steve and I had talked in the past. Well, you can tell that part about.
Yeah. Okay. I'll pick it up then from here. So Cathy, I don't remember it being a surprise when she said she was bisexual. I don't know if she ever specifically said that in a group context, but it was pretty clear. And when we had that conversation, it was not a plot twist for me at all. And my reaction was the exact opposite. I was your typical red-blooded American guy. I was like, "Oh, really? That sounds exciting. I kind of like this idea. We'll have to see what can happen here." So, that student festered for not a great word though, festered. It stewed for a period of time.
But you
And
said if I ever.
yeah, I gave her the go ahead early on. If that's something that you want to do, go right ahead. I didn't feel threatened by her being with another woman at all. It was a completely different can of worms with another guy. So as it happened, I found myself in Antarctica in the fall of 19 for a couple months. And about halfway through that trip down there, that's when I get this message from Cathy saying she was on Tinder looking for another woman. And I'll tell you, that lit a torch on our sexual energy that neither one of us have experienced anything quite like it since. And, we're physically about as far apart as you can be on the planet. And it was amazing. It was,
Yeah.
to quote you, Finn, I know that's your favorite word.
Well, I got
That's
called out a long time ago for saying fascinating too much, and now I've got to eliminate amazing. All right.
No, I'm
We love
just
it.
busting your chops a little bit. But it really was. It was, Antarctica was kind of like being on a deployment. I spent a couple of decades in the military, and it had all of those vibes. It was, not the Hilton by any stretch. There was no cell phones anywhere on the continent. There was no Wi-Fi. Talking was plugging your laptop into an Ethernet cable in the wall and hoping the signal would be good enough. So, us figuring all this out with that, and I'm sitting in a room with 6-7 other guys doing this, and I'm just horny as the day is long, talking about all this stuff with Cathy, and she was the same way, and my initial response, I saved all the emails and the texts actually too. My initial response, I said something to her in the email, and that's kind of defined the way I look at non-monogamy since. I told her I wanted to give her what I can't give her. I can't be a woman, and at that point, I couldn't even be in North America, but I could give her the space to be with another woman. I was okay with that. I found it erotic, and it just felt right. Cathy's a very human-y person. She's very empathetic and very connected to people, and it just seems right that she's with somebody when that needs to happen.
And at this point, just a quick reminder again, like you had not had any experience in the non-monogamy world either. Like this was and entering, you were kind of entering it together in a way, just
Yes.
with a little bit different backgrounds.
Yeah, especially the ethical part. I mean, yeah, of course, everybody knows that people cheat. This is the way of the world. But it never occurred to me. There's several things that we're talking about here that never occurred to me that you could do it ethically. And what a watershed moment that was. If you do it all in the open and you're honest and upfront about it. Yeah, it's a little scary and you're a little vulnerable. But again, this ties back into the getting sober process. There's nothing comfortable and snuggly about that. So a lot of the fear that I think people have with being that vulnerable and that intimate, the conversations that you have to have. These conversations, you've had them. To open your relationship up, they're not easy.
No,
And,
for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. Then Steve, you're at the bottom of the world. Cathy, you're on Tinder. What? How does it go?
Well, I did
Pretty
meet
well.
a girl. It wasn't on Tinder. It wasn't because I went crazy. I was on like
Surprise.
a couple sites, but I did meet a woman who lived about an hour away, and he came home from Antarctica, and he actually drove me up to meet her.
This was like 2 days after I got home.
Yeah, and so I did have an encounter with her, and it was lovely. And so it was like 2 weeks later, we wanted to get together again. But then that time she had asked if her boyfriend could be there, which opened another,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a different can of worms entirely to deal with.
But Steve's wonderful. He agreed,
Yeah,
but there were conditions, because you know how that is in the beginning. There's rules, conditions.
Roll out the Dead Sea Scroll. It just
Right.
never
Yeah,
ends.
you're figuring it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And he was actually traveling, I think, to like Asia or somewhere.
Yeah.
And
So what we all agreed on was he could be in the bed with them and he could play with his girlfriend all he wanted, but there had to be an invisible, line of demarcation with Cathy and him. They could share space and whatnot. And to his credit, he stuck to that. And Cathy says it was
great. It was erotic. It was because I never experienced anything like that before.
very soft, swappy, and she had a great time. But I'm flying back from Taiwan at this point, and landed in SFO and had a multiple hour layover. And this is like she's in the car driving up to this place, and I melt the fuck down right in the middle of the international terminal. I'd gotten through customs, and I'm sitting there, I'm hyperventilating, and I called her. I talked about it with her, and I think Emma, you and I had a discussion about this in the community.
Mhm.
I read a chapter in the book More Than Two about
Yeah.
jealousy, and but between that and talking with Cathy, it calmed me down. It brought me back from the edge. But man, that was intense. It's the intersection of the world, and I'm thinking I don't know if I can survive this. It was borderline catastrophic.
Yeah.
But I got through it, and they had a great time. By the time I landed in Newark, I've still got the selfie. She's like, "Yeah, okay, it went great," and I'm like, "Yeah, I lost my shit for no good reason because 4 hours later, 5 hours later, we're laughing about it and having a good time with it." So it went well.
Well, but I want to just point out here, right? You both sort of had a corrective experience through this, right? Steve, this is the first time you've done something like this. You're across the world / across the country.
Flying in the middle of traveling.
Yeah, in the middle of traveling. And Cathy, your experiences weren't great either for threesomes, right? You'd had years of experiences that were not good for you, that you're saying, I'm not getting what I need out of this. I'm going to go find it for myself. And so this was really, it seems like this was sort of a tipping point for the two of you to say, we can do this hard stuff. It's going to feel better for both of us, but it's there's learning that goes on in that.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, 100%. It was like I said, it was an adventure going through it, but it's the price you paid. You're with the big dogs in the tall grass when you're doing this stuff for all the reasons that you guys and Cathy spoke about earlier. We're all conditioned in this and in the ways where it's just wrong for your significant other. And we were just dating at this point. We weren't even engaged. We were just boyfriend girlfriend at this point. And it's just wrong. You don't do that. You're not the man in the relationship if you're saying, yes, go bravely forth and do good things and have fun with your lady friend, and her boyfriend is going to be there as well. It was a big matzo ball. There's no doubt about it.
But then his wheels started turning. And he thought, oh, maybe I could get in on this too.
I think it was a two-way, but maybe she swears it was my idea about swinging. I don't know that I'd argue the point, but
it led to more conversations.
It led to more uncomfortable island time. It led to more talking, and it led to looking for swinger couples.
Well, because Steve is a tech guy, and unlike most men, they're the ones that are on the computer, I think, and on the sites, and that's right up his alley.
Yeah.
So he started.
Yeah, found all the sites, did all the things, and it.
And I'm sure it wasn't kind of blowing both of your minds that all of this is out there as well.
Yeah, it was eye-opening.
I mean, I didn't know. It
was eye-opening.
Yeah.
For sure. You mean there's clubs that do this? This isn't just, a Stanley Kubrick movie from a couple decades ago. This happens.
Yeah.
And
So how did it go when you started finding we'll call it the infrastructure of swinging, it sounds like, was where you landed first?
Yeah, well, it was with the websites, a couple of different websites, and we ended up meeting a couple who's our age and from close enough. It's kind of germane to our story from here on out. We're not in a big city. We're kind of an hour from anywhere. So
we live in the Northeast.
We live in the Northeast and a fairly rural part of the Northeast. So the lack of population density is something that we struggle with, for lack of a better way to put it. And I don't think, well, with a notable recent exception, I don't think there's been maybe more than one or two play partners that have been within an hour of where we're at. So we did meet this couple. They were 90 minutes or so away from us, and we it was like we followed Swinger 101. We met for dinner, and had a great dinner and decided, yes, we'd like to take it the next step. And so we did. We met, a few weeks later. Again, I was traveling at the end, and this is, as so many stories go, we met this couple for dinner in the first part of January 2020. And we met them the second time at the tail end of January 2020. So it was, we had just started down the road, and COVID was kind of on my radar. I think
you're traveling a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was actually in China in January of 2020, which was cool. It actually caused me to get detained in Singapore a few weeks later because I saw the passport stamp and we're like, wait a minute, we need to talk to you. But the 2020 thing reared its head, and we had a great experience with this couple, and my world was rocked. I thought it was a wonderful thing to meet and talk and have sex with this other person, the wife, obviously. Well, not obviously, but the wife. And what kind of floored me was, looking over across the bed and seeing Cathy with another guy. People who are on the cuckold spectrum talk about when the bug bites, it bites, and that bug bit me really, really hard. It really was something that I had no idea was going to be as impactful as it was. It didn't make me angry or, want to reach over and punch anybody or anything. It was the exact opposite. So, like I said, that was a plot twist. I wasn't expecting that to happen.
And I couldn't even look at him and her. I was scared to death to even look. But
yeah, it's awkward having sex while you got your blinders on and your hands are covering your face, and you're like, oh, just not looking over there.
Right, exactly. But it was fun.
Yeah. Well, I think it's amazing too, just to sort of recap this, if people missed that, right? Going into this, Steve, you were in a place of don't put that invisible wall between you and another man, and then to jump into swinging. Like, that is a huge, that's a huge plot twist, to go in with one frame of mind and come out completely the opposite side of that, being like, whoa, super hot, I'm turned on, maybe even interested in exploring cuckolding.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was a plot twist, and you're right, it was a lot to process headspace wise in not a lot of time.
Yeah, we evolved quickly.
yeah, we kind of did.
And then you got smacked with COVID like the rest of the world. But
we got
those first few months before then.
Yeah. And it was that experience was a lot of fun. It was a great entry for us as a couple together into the non-monogamous world. But it even then, it was like, I think we wanted a little more even at that point. It was like, this is nice, but it's not, I don't know, something was lacking, maybe. I don't know. Wasn't anything that wasn't, it's easy to say it from the perspective of now, 5 years later. But I mean, at the moment, I mean, I didn't have any sort of long range.
Sure. Well, your mind had just been blown.
Yeah.
In so many ways. And I'm curious, Cathy, on your side, you said you didn't want to look over there, but in the aftermath of this, where did it land, or where did you land with it?
It was almost like a rerun of my early years. Like, I enjoyed it, but there was always that little bit of, am I not good enough? Like, that was deep in me. So, I don't know. I mean, we kept moving forward.
We did.
Yes, COVID happened, but, well, a couple months into that, I started having a relationship with a woman, and that lasted a few months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that added to the dumpster fire that Steve's headspace has to go through. All of a sudden, Cathy's in this. It was a relationship. It was a months-long relationship with this woman who she'd actually known for years, and the stars aligned. Cathy had one of the all-time great flirty lines. This girl saw us kissing on the stoop. I was going to work, or who knows what was happening. but she drove by and saw us kissing on the stoop. And she texted Cathy later and said, "Oh, I saw you kissing someone on the porch there." And this one, who doesn't miss a beat, says, "Boy or a girl?" And that just lit her fire right off, and away that
Well,
went.
because this woman was a lesbian, and I knew it because we were friends for a long time. So it was like a flirty, you know,
Yeah,
thing
it was
for
great.
her. Yeah. Well, that
And
started
so
it.
that started it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That lit
Yeah.
it off. Fun. But yeah, we went through the fits and starts other than that everybody else did with COVID. It was, it was COVID. It was 2020. Everybody has, similar experiences with it. It was scary times.
But when it started opening up, then we started going to parties and dating other couples,
Mhm.
so we moved ahead pretty quickly.
I think so.
Yeah.
It felt like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm curious how it felt to start. I mean, yeah, we're coming out of COVID, but just how did it feel around sort of your own sexualities and identities and all of the stuff? I mean, you two had, at this point, 40 plus years of relationship history, or 50 plus years of relationship history that maybe it sounds like didn't feel like yourselves. And now you're starting to test things that, did they feel more like you at this point?
For me, absolutely. And Steve made it very easy because we were so close and we were able to communicate. I mean, there was still some fear, and I'm all about fair. So, for example, like being with that woman for months, I felt a little bit like, oh, this is unfair because I'm seeing somebody and you're not. So we had to work through that a little bit, but
Yeah, that was an evolution for the both of us. And, again, looking back at it with the hindsight that comes from being down the road, we're a really good match for this. She has she doesn't like the word need. I think it's appropriate. She has a need for human connection and variety of human connection that I just don't. There's not a monogamous bone in her body. I'm a typical guy. You tell me, okay, well, here's a group of swingers. Maybe you can meet one and you can go around the corner and have sex with this good. Sign me up. It sounds like it's going to be a great time, but it was never a need for me.
Mm-hmm.
And as much of a need as it might be for Cathy, I found that the itch that I had that needed to be scratched was to be on the other side of that, to be the person for her who opens those doors, who allows, I don't want to use the word allows, who has the space
yeah.
for that to happen. And,
And you feel secure in your relationship too.
Yeah. And I, that goes back to the sober thing. I think it goes back to, the fact that we both have a few more years under our belts than a lot of couples do who are breaking into this world. Yeah, but even at that, I mean, I've proven to myself the value of Apple Care Plus because there's a dent in the wall right over there that fits nicely to the corner of an iPhone. So,
we didn't go unscathed.
it hasn't been
We've had
hasn't
a
been
few.
smooth sailing all the time, but
Yeah.
Well, these are hard things to figure out and learn and undo. I mean,
Exactly.
you're undoing 50 years of conditioning.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
pressure and shame, it all in a pressure cooker.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And I still had these patterns of behaviors of being afraid to be honest, like, oh, I'm talking to somebody, but I'm afraid to tell him, or, like that kind of stuff because of years of not being honest. So we had to work through that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. That's a big one, right? That's what it took you. You're undoing that
Yes.
lived experience for years and years and years.
Yes.
And I'm curious where the two of you have ended up today. What does it look like?
No, it's a hot mess. This is something that gave me more angst than anything else coming into this interview. And we rewrite a blog too. And it's perpetually angsty for me is the labels and the pigeonholing and,
Mhm.
you know, this, that, the other. It's just something I've never been comfortable with. But we're kind of all over the place. We dabble with cuckolding, but not as a I don't know, as a hardcore, this is the only thing that we do, and we're blinded by it at this point.
Well,
Mhm.
can I just interrupt and go
Please.
back a little bit? Like, I would say we spent the first few years mostly swinging.
Mhm.
I did have that relationship with the woman, but it was mostly swinging for years.
It was
And yes,
intentional swinging.
and then I started having just relationships with men,
Mhm.
which you might want to mention that, like, you were afraid of that at first
Oh,
because you didn't
terrified.
want me to be my real self.
Yeah, Cathy is like I've said before in this interview. Cathy has a knack for being a good human. You know, to paraphrase your motto there.
I'm a
She's
people
You're
person.
a people person. You know, she's dealt with people professionally, very intimately, very close for her entire life. And she's, you know, I'm sure we all know an empath, and she's absolutely one. And you know, she has a spark that I haven't seen in very many people. And that scared me was, you know, the sex part. Yeah, that was fine. I can handle sharing the sex part. You know, I think seeing Cathy in her element is wonderful. I was afraid of the intimacy. I was afraid that if Cathy let her true colors be shown and other people saw it, you know, what that just can't go well because, you know, that's
You were
yeah,
afraid of
yeah, lots of
somebody to fall in love with
self-confident
me, or
issues, lots of I'm an adopted kid, so there's layer upon layer of abandonment and blah 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 that goes along with that. And it was a challenge to get comfortable with other men seeing that side of Cathy because that's what she wants. She wants people to see that. She wants that sort of connection with people. And, you know, had to face my biggest fear and you know, through that came, you know, a lot of wonderful things. We haven't had any disasters or any real problems since we started going down this way, and it's brought us closer together. It's been awesome.
so we went from swinging to hot wifing,
Yeah,
hotel takeovers,
yeah. We've done, you know, all of the swinging things, takeovers and house parties and
vacation,
vacations.
lifestyle
We've had some fun.
vacations.
Mhm,
Yes.
Mhm.
mhm. And then
We're not
Cathy, you continued with that, it sounds like, but also started dating separately.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And through our blog, we met one of my lovers who actually is became good friends with us
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Um, he comes over, eats a meal with us. He stays over with both of us, and so that really turned out to be a cool
Yeah,
thing.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's you know walking downstairs and you know turn. I don't sleep all that great. I'm usually up in the middle of the night and then go back to sleep on the weekends for a couple hours. And this is what happened that one day. I did my usual get up at 3 o'clock and pace and play my guitar for a little bit, and I went back up to lay down. And when I came back downstairs, Cathy and her friend there are in the kitchen, you know, eating pancakes and bacon that they cooked. And I'm walking down the stairs and smelling and seeing and hearing this stuff. And it was just awesome. It felt fantastic. There was no
No ick.
sense of bad. I turned the corner, and instead of somebody being like, "Oh shit, your husband's home," it was smiles and "Come on in, sit down. We saved you some bacon." It's like, okay, these people are great. They saved me bacon.
Yeah. I mean, anytime someone saves you bacon, that's the best part of any breakfast. So,
Amen. Amen.
Yeah. So it's just evolving. It's forever changing.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually love, like, when I asked you kind of where you were today, you started by saying we're a hot mess. It's a hot mess, but that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like
Oh, absolutely not.
that can be part of the fun of it all. Of like, no, we have a little bit here, we have there, we got
Yeah.
there. Like
Yep.
it often like as you said too, like labels are tricky. Labels, it's hard to. Oftentimes they're useful to start somewhere, but then really it's about describing more about what you're actually doing and what it looks like for you rather than the label itself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point.
And quite honestly, I think what brings us the most joy is when we're in a room with 20 other naked people and it's just, I don't know, fun and joy. It's just great, you know? Yeah, there's
that's good
nothing
stuff.
icky about it. There's
Yeah.
smiles and laughter, and it's just a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing how times. We were at a party for New Year's Eve a couple of years ago, and we were downstairs in one of the great swinger playrooms, and nobody noticed that the clock struck midnight. It was 25 after 12:30 before anybody noticed that it was the new year. It was a good night.
Yeah,
Yeah, that means you're distracted.
The mark
in
of a good
way.
party. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
no doubt.
yeah.
Now, I'm just curious. You two have talked about a lot of different things, a lot of different ways you've grown. And I hate saying, sometimes I'm tired of the word growth. Like we just always have to be growing and changing and getting better, and that we're not ever just good enough. But I don't necessarily have that mindset. But I'm curious, as you've gone through this, are there things that you found that were maybe more challenging at the beginning that got easier, or things you've learned along the way about yourselves that are maybe a little different now than they were when you first started? Again, I know you talked about a few of them that you were surprised that cuckolding was hot and all of that, but if there's any more that you wanted to sort of touch on before we let you two go today.
I know one thing for me was the whole jealousy thing. Again, with my past insecurities, I honestly wish Steve would have more alone time with a woman so I could work on that because I do need to change and grow. But I did have a couple bad moments with jealousy. The one time we stayed overnight in a hotel with another couple, which we don't recommend really.
Yeah, bad idea.
But and I saw them like snuggling afterwards, and it just really, this was early on too, when we first start swinging. It really upset me, and I didn't let anybody know that I was upset, but everybody fell asleep except me, and I actually got angry. I had a lot of emotions. I just didn't know what to do with them. I ended up going out and sleeping in the car for a couple hours. It was ridiculous, really, but now looking back on it. But one thing was, I kept it to myself for a few days. He didn't even know I was angry, and I had no one to talk to about it, and that was hard. So after I suffered for a few days, I finally did tell him what happened and how I felt, and it got better, obviously. But that's why I'm glad that you have a community of people that we could talk to. The women's group, which I've attended once and I'm going to do it again. It's wonderful. I wish I would have had that back then because I really did need somebody to talk to. And vanilla people or the church people or no, you know what I mean? People don't get us,
Yeah.
So.
And that's another thing that we learned from being sober is, a drunk can talk to a drunk in a way that nobody else can. We understand each other. Same thing with people that are in the non-monogamy world. You can talk to somebody who's not, and they're going to look at you like you have three heads. But we can say words like cuckolding and swinging and all these things. And looking at you guys, and you're like, "Yep, okay, it's Tuesday." It normalizes.
And what really did help was, though, your podcast and other podcasts, listening to other people's stories, that did help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, there's no doubt. And I think my answer to your question there, Finn, I don't know if it's so much the growth and the change and whatnot. I know for me, it's much more about coming into who I feel the most authentic being. And if that's a growth thing or just a realization thing, I'm not smart enough to answer that. But I know I feel better, at 58 than at any point prior in my life. So
Me too. I feel like I'm my
I'm on
authentic
track.
self now. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way to frame it, right? Is it's, again, sure, is there growth that happens for all of us? Sure, yes, absolutely. But I think so much of this, and I will say for myself, has been a journey of figuring out who I am and how to be that person more often,
Mhm.
and to sort of embrace that.
Mhm.
And there's a I don't know the best way to ask this question without it like trying to project it onto you, but I'm just curious about this because we had an interview not that long ago with somebody named Elena, and she talked a bit about so her story was largely about um, her figuring out that she was gay, that she was a gay woman, that she's a lesbian. But what was happening for her along the path was she would go out to bars and get drunk and make out with women, and that was sort of her permission. She sort of started to equate being drunk and going out with and being able to be herself. So when she was drunk, she felt like, well, I can be myself. This is my party space. I can be me. And when she sort of got to a place where she was able to be herself without that, the relationship to alcohol changed significantly. And I'm just curious for you two, being sober for as long as you have and now embracing yourselves in this way, I'm just curious if there was any of that connection for the two of you, that the alcohol was an outlet to sort of peer into who you were that you really didn't have access to.
Um, I thought so back when I was drinking, but from the benefit of being where I am now, it was an illusion. It wasn't any kind of reality. But for me, when I'd get some drinks into me, it would be, to date myself, would be like the old rabbit ears on the TV where you'd move them and you'd get them just right. The picture would come in. I'd get to the third drink and that's where it was. Or it would be like, going, from a crappy Wi-Fi signal where the video is all junky to, oh, here's good Wi-Fi and you're in 1040. That's what drinking did to me. But it wasn't real. It felt real, but it wasn't. I felt the most normal that I did. Like I said, I was an adopted kid, and I dealt with I wore that like a scarlet letter and a cross for a long time. And I'd get to that third drink point, and I thought that was what normal was. I thought, okay, I feel good. I'm comfortable in my own skin all of a sudden. I can talk to someone like Cathy and not be terrified of it. But it was bullshit. It was a foxhole prayer. It wasn't reality.
Mhm.
And over time, you do that often enough and frequently enough, it distorts your whole world. Everything goes crazy. What up is down, what's black is white. It just doesn't make any sense, and you end up becoming the worst version of yourself. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I had to make a change.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I even answered your question there, but I think maybe I did.
No, I don't know either, but I really appreciate what you shared. So it doesn't much matter if the question was explicitly answered.
And Cathy,
Well,
anything you wanted? Or go for it, Steve.
No,
You
I-
have more.
No, I was
Okay.
just going to
Nope.
say yes, or I don't know, something stupid.
Yeah, Cathy, is there anything you wanted to add for
Not
yourself?
really for me. No, I don't know. I think drinking just brought out my character defects, and now being sober, I'm more my better self,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
I
you.
appreciate that, and thank you for letting me ask that, because it was just a thought that kind of popped into my head. I actually edited that episode earlier today, and it was sort of fresh in my brain, and I was just
Right.
curious if there was any sort of elements of that rang true for the two of you. But I just appreciate you sharing.
Thank you.
I'll tell you where the advantage is in doing all this sober is if you're at a party or a big takeover with all the music and whatnot. We're classic rockers. We're not into the EDM thing, and unfortunately, that's mostly what you get at the clubs and whatnot. And I've learned since then that the majority of not the majority, a good part of the hangovers that I used to get came from that. Because I'll wake up the morning after a night out at a takeover or something, and just spending an hour in that environment where the music is just killing you. Wake up the next day and it's like, oh my God, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
And so to wake up with only that part of the hangover and lose part of the hangover is truly a blessing.
Yeah. Yeah. I thank you both for everything that you have shared today. I'm also curious about how it's gone sharing this with other people in your life. How open are you? Who have you shared with, and how has that gone?
We did decide a few months ago that we were going to come out to our children. We have 4 adult children between the two of us. And because we wanted to be our authentic selves, because, we would tell them, oh, we're going here, we're going there. But it didn't feel like it was genuine. It was the truth always. So plus we also didn't want to, if I was out with another guy in a restaurant or something and it's a small town, hey, I saw your mom out and it wasn't your stepdad, or whatever. So we decided to tell them, and we did. We told them all, and we didn't have any negative reactions at all. And I mean, even if they felt negative about it, they certainly didn't show it. You
Yeah.
know,
So
And-
it was that they're all older. 3 out of the 4 have their own kids, and like Cathy said, it just felt like the right thing to do. Um, and it did go really smoothly. But my daughter had a great reaction. I told her on FaceTime because of logistics and circumstances. And, she kind of got this sideways grin on her face and she said, well, I didn't have that on my bingo card. So it was great. And we kept it all in a fairly general way.
Sure.
Yeah.
We didn't go
Yeah,
into.
they can ask more questions if they want to.
Right.
Exactly. We're ethically non-monogamous, and no adult kid wants to hear about their even more adult parents' sex lives. So
Right.
Mhm. Yeah. You didn't get a whole lot of, well, what does cuckolding mean for you, Dad? Right?
Al- although my oldest daughter did interview us one night out on the porch,
Yeah.
she had a lot of questions, and it was actually wonderful. Really,
she did. We got back in the weeds with her about a lot of things, much more than I think either one of us thought we ever would with any of the kids. And with the interesting side effect is with all of them, there's been a kind of a noticeable uptick in them being maybe a little more vulnerable with us, a little more open with us about stuff that's going on in their lives. Giving that extra sentence or that extra paragraph to, explain where they're at. It's been a benefit. It's been really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vulnerability begets vulnerability in many
Yes.
cases.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
I love that. I appreciate you both just for everything you've
Mhm.
shared today.
Mhm.
Oh, we're wonderful fans. So
Yeah, you are.
thank you for noticing.
You're amazing,
Yes,
actually, is
yes.
the proper
Here you
term.
go.
Thank you.
Before we let you two go, is there anything else you wanted to get out there today?
Was there anything that we wanted to say that we didn't? I don't think so.
I don't-
I'll mention our blog if I can do that.
Yeah, go for it.
Of course.
Yeah. We write on Medium right now as Sam and Kate. And like I said, that's on Medium, and that might be changing. We have a website, but I'm not going to talk about that yet. We're not there. We're not.
We'll
really
put a link in the show notes so people can find you.
Okay,
Wonderful.
awesome
Yeah.
sauce.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys
oh.
so much for having us on. It's wonderful to chat with you a little bit.
It was our pleasure, and I just again thank you for coming on and sharing so vulnerably about not just the non-monogamy, but all aspects of your life today. And once again, thank you for being a part of our community and people listening. These are the caliber of amazing people that I keep saying amazing. I'll say these are the caliber of fascinating people that are part of our community, and we would just love to remind you of that.
This is never going to see the air where we screwed ourselves. I screwed us by saying amazing.
Nope. I live in this world, so you're good. This world of I edit these episodes and I hear myself say things over and over. Sometimes I edit myself out. So you never know. You never know. I say 20 times as many amazings as make it into the final episode.
I'm just going to let that one go.
There you go.
Well, thank you both, and we can't wait till we talk again. Have a wonderful rest of your night.
Thank you.
you
You
too.
guys as well. It's been a pleasure.
And we're back. Thank you so much, Steve and Cathy, for coming on and sharing your story. It was lovely to talk to you, and we're excited to get this episode out there.
And thank you for being a part of our community. It's been wonderful getting to know you in there as well as on this amazing episode. So thank you again.
A couple of quick reminders for anyone listening. We have a virtual speedfriending event coming up tomorrow. That is March 20th. So go and sign up on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, over on the events tab.
And don't forget, we also have an in-person event. If you're tired of all the Zoom stuff, we got you. We're hosting an in-person retreat in Atlanta, April 25th to the 27th. You can find out more information under the community tab of our website. This event is open to our community members, but remember, joining is only a couple of bucks a month, and we'd love to have you join us there.
It's going to be sweet.
It's going to be awesome. We got almost 50 people going to be joining us, and it's going to be a hella good time. So
Yes.
we hope you can make it as well.
Yes. And next week, surprise, surprise, we have another interview for you.
We do. We're bringing back a former guest from episode 255. That is Eka. If you don't remember, you might not, but she was just about to burst with a baby at that point. And at this point, her kid's in college. I think it's been that long since we talked. So,
Maybe a little exaggerated.
slightly. But it's a wonderful conversation, and we can't wait to have you back with us next week.
And I think that's it.
That's all I got.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.